Negotiations are underway, and we are on our way to finding out more about what the future holds for LeBron James, Paul George, Klay Thompson, and more. Is your phone buzzing off the hook already?
No.
Because mine sure is, with Adrian Wojnarowski's reporting already. Hey, welcome to the NBA Today Free Agency Special. He's Zach Lowe. He's Brian Windhorst. In the crushed velvet jacket there, that's Richard Jefferson.
Welcome.
You can't miss him. Kendrick Perkins. I'm Malika Andrews. Woj, Bobby Marks, Ramona Shelburne, Dave McMenamin. They are all standing by, but we start our show with some breaking news because James Harden is planning to return to the Clippers on a 2-year, $70 million deal. That is what a league source confirmed to our own Young Masuk. LA will be, of course, opening a new arena, and now they will know that they have Kawhi Leonard and at least James Harden in the Intuit Dome. So I want to bring in our Ramona Shelburne because, Ramona, notice a name that I didn't mention, Paul George. Yeah. What does this decision tell us about Paul George's future in Los Angeles?
Well, it's really interesting. Kawhi Leonard took 3 years, $150 million. James Harden just took 2 years, $70 million. But the second year of that contract is a player option. So we're back to this one-on-one with James Harden. It's almost like he hits free agency every single season. But this year it's a player option. And for Paul George, it's really been about, he knows that there are other teams that will offer him 4 years. There are other teams that will give him the full max. Kawhi Leonard, James Harden have taken less than the full max to stay in Los Angeles. But if you know your market has 4 years elsewhere, 4 years and a full max elsewhere, and this is probably your last big contract. If you're Paul George, it is a very tough decision. You know, a couple years ago, I did a cover story on Paul George and talking about why he wanted to play in Los Angeles. He wants to be at home around his parents. His mom had a stroke when he was younger, and it's harder for her to travel to games. Being in Los Angeles was a homecoming for her and for him, and this is a tugging at his heartstrings to make this choice. And yet, 4 years versus 3 years, 4 years at a full max versus less than the full max. That's a tough decision for a player in his mid-30s.
Yeah, it really is. Ramona, thank you so very much. I want to bring it back to set here because we've talked about this really as being the summer of Paul George. Why, Brian, does PG control free agency in the way that we're talking about him as doing?
Well, the team that has the most space that's a contender to spend is the Philadelphia 76ers. They are prioritizing Paul George. They are going to meet with him, I am told, today. And they are going to see whether they can give a max contract to Paul George. Also getting a meeting, according to Woj, the Orlando Magic, the team that has one of the second or third most amounts of cap space. So both of those teams aren't spending their money until they know for sure where Paul George is going. There's a whole secondary list of free agents that are lined up behind Paul George that will potentially go to Philadelphia or Orlando when they give an answer. And you have the Clippers. The Clippers are waiting to see if Paul George, they're not out of this yet. They still have a standing offer to Paul George. I don't think he's taking it because I think he would have taken it already. But if he doesn't return to the Clippers then can enter the market. You have other pieces like Klay Thompson who may consider the Clippers, and then you're going to have a cascading effect that goes down. So while we are going to see some deals get done here, I think you will really see a bunch of the bigger names stuck behind Paul George. When he makes his mind up, we're going to see a bunch of deals happen right after each other.
Do we have any idea on the timeline that we're working with for Paul George?
He wants to go through these meetings, so I would guess it's going to be some period of time, maybe overnight into tomorrow, but he also is meeting with Philly today. We know that. If he likes what he hears, he could commit to Philly today, and then we could see some action faster.
Can we go back to the Clippers for a second? Like, seriously, what are they doing? Ever since Steve Ballmer took over for us buying this team, all he's been doing is paying salaries, paying doctor bills, and paying construction workers. That's it. This team has underachieved damn near every single season. They're never reliable when it comes down to when it matters the most. We don't know which direction they're going in, but it don't seem like the right direction, to be honest with you, because this roster that they have right now that's still led by Kawhi Leonard that you can't depend on, now all of a sudden you go out and you sign James Harden to a 2-year deal who you also can't depend on, and that don't have a damn thing to do with injuries. I'm like, what are they doing? Like, we talk so much about the Lakers and criticize the Lakers, but the Lakers has had way more success over these last 5 or 6 years than the Clippers have. I just don't know what they're doing right now, and it's really a damn shame.
There's definitely a strategy, but I'm going to tell you, I don't know what it is because they know that Philly can offer this max contract. They know that Orlando can offer this max contract. This deadline didn't sneak up on them. They knew this for months, and they elected not to change the offer to Paul George, knowing that he could get more money elsewhere, and that is where they're at right now.
But Wendy, like, didn't they give up SGA and $1 million draft picks for Paul George?
Yes.
Like, one would think that they would do everything in their power to keep him there and keep him happy,
you
right?
have to understand, at the end of this contract, he's going to be 38 years old, making $50 million. It's a player with a career with a history of injuries. Now, that's what they're looking at. And they're like, we would really be in bad space if we had that situation. So they're offering him a shortened deal. Kawhi signed the deal because he's like, hey, look, I'm gonna put my name on that paper because I understand the injuries. Paul George is like, I get what y'all are doing, but the rest of the league is telling me that I'm worth a max contract. And at the end of the day, that's it. I respect his entire family. You can buy your mom a house anywhere you want. You can buy her a couple vacation homes with that money. So I'm just saying he should prioritize himself and his career because the Clippers are telling you how they value you.
If this is the end of the PG Kawhi era, it is an unmitigated failure. They've won 3 playoff series in 5 years and none since 2021. Oof. Here's what's confusing to me about the Clippers. They're haggling with Paul George over the 4th year. They gave 3 to Kawhi, 2 to Harden. And the reason it's been kind of peppered about the media is, well, we're concerned about the second apron. We want to get under the second apron. I'm not sure what the 4th year of Paul George's deal has to do with the second apron and getting under it, because you already paid Kawhi 3. Now you've paid Harden 2. If you bring Paul George back on a 3-year deal, which we all presume is the offer, you're going over the second apron for at least 1, probably 2, maybe all 3 of those years. And then Kawhi comes off, Harden's already off. What does the 4th year have to do with the second apron? I don't really know the answer to that, other than they just don't want to pay him as he gets older and older and older, and they want to have the ability to reset faster if this goes badly. It's just a little, to your point about Wendy saying there's a strategy, you're not quite sure what it is. I agree. I'm a little confused.
Really quickly, though, to the panel. Do you think that 3-year deal that Kawhi signed put the Clippers in a tough spot? Because now they're like, we can't give him a 4-year deal because Kawhi signed a 3-year, and Kawhi would be furious if we, you know what I'm saying?
And why would Paul George care? Kawhi's out in the playoffs every year.
Agreed, but I'm saying they're like, we're not going to give you, and we're going to stick by our guns. We're not going to give you a 4-year deal, Kawhi. You're only getting 3.
I'm pretty sure Kawhi, when he signed that deal, he was not thinking about Paul George. He was thinking about Kawhi Leonard and those knees.
He got asked about that the day he signed the deal. And he said the day he signed the deal, it's my understanding that I'm going to sign, Paul's going to sign, and James Harden is.
But I heard this before back in Brooklyn with Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving and James Harden all had a similar. I was in that press.
When they signed Kawhi to that deal, whatever it was last December or January, they never told Paul George about it. Paul George found out about it when the rest of the world found out about it.
Yep.
So I think what you have to do here, forget what the Clippers say. Judge them on their actions. Their actions over the season and their actions here in free agency indicate they're ready to move on from Paul George. He's been told basically very clearly, and so now he's ready to move on from them.
And the Clippers know that Paul George have somewhat of an issue with playing with James Harden. And then you go out and sign him right now at this moment before you get a deal done with him. So like Paul George addressing and saying on his show that he just want to play the right way, that he never said that before. He's saying that now since James Harden got on his team.
Well, since we're talking about the money that James Harden has agreed to, $70 million over 2 years, I want to bring Bobby Marks back into the conversation. Bobby, what does this open up here for the Clippers?
Well, Malik, I think it's all dependent on what happens with Paul George right now. And certainly when we slide